Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, we know we'll see five-star edition Micah Hudson on the field, but where and how will they get the ball in his hands? We investigate next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. Something for everyone every day, all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. Wrapping up the week and got some fun things to talk about today, including a listen to a guy that we haven't actually heard from, at least in an official Texas Tech capacity, and that is the five-star edition, the crown jewel of this most recent class for Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders, one Micah Hudson, who we are all doing our darndest to not just heap a large pile of expectation on top of, but it's hard when a guy like that has got the talent that Micah has got. So want to take a listen to some thoughts from him pertaining to the role that at least we've seen him kind of fit into so far through camp. And as you've spoken about several times, this will be a manufacturing touches kind of guy. Like, we're going to find ways to get the ball in his hands. So let's kick off our conversation. Taking a listen to Micah Hudson, talking about where he's fit in so far and how what he did on the prep or high school level actually helped prepare him to be a varied weapon for the Red Raiders.
I've been playing the Z mostly, but we have different packages and things like that where I go to slot. Anywhere they need me, I'm just trying to help the team. My high school coaches really got me ready with the moving me around, because I was always, either the slot outside or at running back or even at quarterback in younger years. But just being able to really get set, like just get used to little things like that, and just going out there knowing that I can do it, just have a good confidence, and just knowing that my preparation is really what's going to help me.
Obviously, you got a talent like that, any coach in the world is going to find a place for him to stand and touch the football. So excited to see what ways in which Zach Kitley and company find ways to get the ball in his hands this year.
Yeah, when somebody like this is as good as they are in high school, you can't just typically put them in the same position and everything as the defenses adjust. You're trying to create matchups and give him some different looks. And I think the same will hold true here at Texas Tech. One, he is somebody that is so highly recruited, and there's been some hype, obviously, that you want to make sure that you get him involved. You don't want him to have to deal with, well, man, they didn't throw it to me, so I really can't help the team kind of stuff. So that's why it puts a little pressure on Barron and Coach Kitley and Joey and everybody just to get Micah involved. But this is somebody, because he's listed at 6 foot, and he might be, but he's certainly not any taller than that. And so this is just somebody that is, he's not a 6'4" guy that you just stick outside and go, hey man, you're good. And I think he can do outside, inside, maybe line him up in the backfield at times, send him in motion and hand it to him, a variety of different things. But you're trying to create a favorable matchup for him. And here's also the fascinating thing about a guy with his measurables is that it doesn't matter what he's listed at, like, outside receiver, inside receiver. I mean, just skill player. I mean, that's what he is. He's offensive weapon. He's a playmaker. He's somebody that you could put a variety of different positions, because he's going to play a little bit of everything. I don't, know if he'll favor inside over outside or outside over inside, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But putting him in a variety of different situations. But here's the when you get down to it, because he caught 70 passes for 1,300 plus yards in high school last year. I mean, that's a massive number, especially in high school when everybody knows who's getting the football. Okay. It's like, guard that side of the field, fellas, because he's over here. So let's put 4 of you guys, let's put some shallow, let's cover ourselves deep. Let's try to bracket him. Let's do whatever. But in high school, he's bigger and faster than a lot of these guys and more physical and, and all those things. So you can throw it in traffic a bit and have the trust that he's going to come down with it. This is a different level. There will be some, Barron's going to have to there's going to need to be some trust there, because there's going to be some corners that are really good and some defensive coordinators that are really good. And luckily he's got all this help around him. So you can't do this whole thing and okay, we're going to totally focus on him, because you've got Josh Kelly, you've got Coy Aiken, you've got all these things around him. But when Micah gets down the field a bit and he looks covered, is Barron willing to trust that, okay, I'm going to have to throw him open, or I'm going to have to throw it to him even though he's not open per se, but he's going to go up and get it. And that's easier said than done. On the, underthrown, overthrown, do I throw it just a little? I mean, because he's got a big time catch radius for what his measurables are, because he's just got big time ball skills. He will go up and get it high pointed, and he's got great hands, and he's athletic and all those things. It's just that component of throwing you open or throwing it to you, trusting that even when you're not open, you're still going to go catch it. That's a level I'm kind of curious to see what confidence everybody's got in that, because I think Mike is going to say, dude, why is the ball not coming my way? And Barron may go, well, but in high school, I mean, the QB's just being like, I'm just going to rear back and chunk it in his direction. He'll figure the rest out. But you can't quite do that at this level, or we haven't seen that part yet. And I think that makes me a bit curious about how this thing will work. That's why I also think, though, that you'll manufacture some things to him. You'll get the ball in his hands with a sweep or one of those now screens, or various things, just to get him going, because that's, I think, how he is. He's somebody that needs the ball and early in a game to feel like he's effective before, not that he would check out, but just some guys are like that.
Well, it's like, having a shot fall or something like that. You get a little
Bingo.
rhythm and kind of get your mojo going, and
Yep.
You start getting the confidence going. You hear him mention that word, which I'm sure he's never been short for confidence, for good reason, because obviously he's been a playmaker. And yeah, I think it would be very difficult, particularly from the quarterback's perspective, to just roll out there and immediately feel like even when this guy's covered, he's still a little bit open. But after you get some of that proof of performance, so to speak, and then you get that confidence as a quarterback, and maybe you're willing to take some of those chances. And I don't know, I think Barron Morton's got a little bit of that to him as well, feeling like he can take some chances, possibly here or there. So taking a chance on Micah Hudson is probably typically going to be a pretty good bet. I was impressed just listening to the entire conversation as he spoke with the media, Chris. Comes across as a really mature guy, and I don't know what I expected, but he's a very young guy and has had a big spotlight on him, and kind of had the college football world catering to him for a period of time until he chose the Red Raiders. And I was a little taken aback by just what seemed to be a mature individual and somebody who really kind of thinks some things through as far as his preparation so far and what he's expecting out of year number one. But I guess one of the questions I still have in my mind is how he's sort of utilized or acclimated by his coaches, by Kitley and Coach Johnson and Coach McGuire, as the season gets going. Do you get any vibe that there's a slow play factor to it at all, or is it just pedal to the metal and, hey, we're going to use you like you've already been here? Do you have a feel for that yet?
Well, because he missed most of the spring, and I think he's there and he's going through it mentally, and he's watching and all those things, just different than actually being out there. And then guys trying to cover you, and then it's we're practicing, and there's a game coming up, and you're getting all this install thrown at you. I think that somebody like him and Conyers, were swimming a little bit early on in camp, and it's I don't want to say confusing, but it's just a lot. You feel like you're on mental overload. Like, okay, what's this again? And I think he's having ask a lot of questions and all that, which I think they've praised him for. That's what you get from a guy like Micah, though. I think there is an ego, but there's not. Look, I don't think anybody has any doubts that he knows that he's really good and all that, but he's also very humble in that I'm not walking in here expecting anything or for anybody to hand me anything. I want to be coached. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to ask the right questions. I'm trying to get up here in the building earlier than most because I do have a lot to still learn. And I think that, after the first 3 or 4 days of camp, I think he's started to acclimate a bit better and starting to, pick up what the play calls are and all these things, because I think it was said in one of those media availabilities recently that Barron even said that it's a new 60 play call sheet every day. Yeah. And there's a lot of new stuff on there day to day. There's not a ton of carryover, just trying to small doses at a time. And then you start to see some repeat and then you go, okay, I've got everything that there is to know, but we're not quite there yet. But he's really bright. And I think this is the maturity that you're talking about is why they were so drawn to him. I also think it's why that they being Joey has not shied away from heaping praise and adding some expectation to him. A lot of times you want to protect him. You don't want to build it up too much. You don't want him to have to deal with that. I don't think they're worried about that here because he is so mature. He is very grounded and, again, wants to be coached and all those things. I think that is partly why they just were like, this guy is different in a variety of different ways, not just on the field, but his mindset and his maturity level is far superior than most any freshman that's really come in here in a long time. And we'll see how he handles it because he's going to have a target on his back. I mean, there's other people that are these other programs that are like, yeah, I've read about you, man. You're not getting yours on, right. on me today, kind of, he's going to have to deal with some of that, but that's what makes it fun. I mean, and you hope that he doesn't stick out like a sore thumb in a couple of years to where like, this is the only big time recruit you've ever gotten. We're talking about him so much now because he is different than anybody you've ever gotten, but you hope that there's more like him in the pipeline soon.
Yeah, obviously the talent is different, but something between the years maybe a little different as well as far as what he's got going on upstairs, and again how that ties into the maturity. And yeah, the whole 60 play a day thing that's been playing out this week as far as conversation goes from some of those players kind of blew me away. Of course, I hail from 3 yards in a cloud of dust high school. We had wham left, wham right, tackle trap left, tackle trap right, and then maybe if we got really desperate, we'd think about looking at the wide receiver or the split end. We had one. But yeah, that's kind of blowing me away to think about those numbers. But I'm also curious, Chris, and that was something that you alluded to this, and he mentioned that he's not out there for pity pat, I think is what he said. He wants to be coached. He wants to hear, the hard truths or whatever it might be as to things that he's not doing so well or things he's got to improve on. And, man, that's great to hear from such a young guy. But one of the other things that he was asked about, and I know we're all probably kind of curious about this as fans, when you're talking about manufacturing touches, it ain't just on the offensive side that you can do such a thing. And I'm wondering whether or not there might be a returner component to the role that he might play. Now, you got one of the best in the Big 12, and I think one of the best in the nation, obviously, in Dre McCray. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities coming his way. But do you think we could see Hudson somewhere show up in the return game? First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And summertime means baseball, burgers, and money in the bank when you're picking a winner with FanDuel. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer by beating the heat with a refreshing parlay. An over-under play, or by getting the moneyline mojo working. Visit FanDuel.com and make a splash by adding a big win to your summer bucket list with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Do you think we could see Hudson somewhere show up in the return game?
Yes. Dre McCray is clearly your top kick returner. Somebody else will be back there with him. And is that, a Jordan Brown or a Coy Aiken or a Micah Hudson or a Cam Valdez? I mean, I think we've seen all of those other guys get opportunities. They still don't necessarily know who their punt returner is. There's a variety of guys that have worked there. And I think Dre he'll get a shot at that for sure, and he's earned that. And I think that the thing that Kenny Perry it's not about the juice or who's the most electric back there. Honestly, you're looking for the most sure-handed guy you can find. I mean, I think Adrian Fry drove people crazy a bit for a period of years just because it was really a field it, and then there wasn't a lot left. There were some times where he showed some wiggle and all that, but that's a nightmare if you're even wondering, are they going to field it cleanly? Do they understand when to go catch it, fair catch it, let it go? Are they going to catch it on their own 1 yard line? And it's the most scary thing in football. Your chin up in the air, 60,000+ people, you can't see a thing. Just catch it and go try it sometime. And you got the win, and the ball is, I mean, that is an elite skill. And so I think they'll give Micah a shot. Absolutely, I do. I think he's in the short list of folks but I mean, that's Dre's, I don't want to say his spot to lose, but he'll get the first crack at it, I think. But I would say this. At some point this year, maybe it's sooner than later, maybe it's very early, maybe it's not till mid-year. At some point, Micah Hudson will field some punts. Yes. And maybe even kicks as well. You've got to get yourself ready for what next year looks like, and I think he's got some juice, and he's kind of a natural playmaker, and so this would be other ways to get him the football and things like that. But it's all about, like the punt return specifically, it's all about being able to field it first before any of the fun stuff happens and making a guy miss and showing everybody why he's got so much wiggle in the open field. But we got to field it cleanly first. And it's not easy, like I said. So in this Lubbock wind and all those kinds of things. So yeah, but that would be my answer there.
I thought that's why they built that $230-something million building, is to help with that wind.
And it will.
That was the only reason, right?
I think you're onto something there. I tend to think that you're not going to get as much swirl as you did. I mean, there's not a better day that I had as a kid when I went to the Ranger game with my grandfather way back in the day, and it was like this frozen ice cream or frozen yogurt was it's like seeing fire for the first time. I was like, what is this sorcery? And they put that chocolate and vanilla swirl in a little, baseball cap. I was like, man, okay, you can take me right now, Lord. I'm in heaven. But that's what the wind does. That's the only time I use the word swirl. So that's what I think of that. But that southwest tunnel, when you were used to come in there, the wind would come down there, and it would just cause this effect, especially at that end of the field. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you'll get as much of that now. And now the building is kind of, only when the ball will get up high will it have a problem. If it stays fairly low, I just don't think you're going to get much of that. So from this standpoint, what we're talking about, probably a little less to deal with in game situations for sure.
Some of what he talked about as well, Chris, the path to Texas Tech, and it sounded like a really strong relationship with one Brian Nance was kind of the key to opening the door first, and then obviously a lot of things follow that, but a good foundation there with Nance.
Yeah, I mean, this is Brian Nance is somebody that I need to think of how to phrase this. Like, I hope, this is me being selfish, and you should feel the same. I hope he's still here a year from now. It's not going to surprise me at all if somebody's like, I want to be in the Brian Nance business. He is an up and coming star in the personnel, but he was, I don't know if it's right to say most responsible, but there was nobody else that was more responsible than Brian Nance and Micah Hudson's relationship and all that. And so many people were involved. Kitley, Barron, Joey, on and on it goes. Blanchard. I mean, it was just such a team effort, but Brian's the one that really started it and finished it, if that makes sense. But This is just he's known, I think, of Micah for a long, long time. But yeah, Coach Nance, man, he's I'm glad he's wearing red and black. I just hope I hope that it's for a bit longer before somebody scoops him up.
Man, and how fortunate are we as Tech fans to have had the Josh Kelly addition in the offseason, and you may throw Caleb Douglas in there too. But I'm just kind of thinking about if the Hudson story had played out the same way and he comes in without those additions, I mean, think about the way that we would be viewing him as far as the need to really make a huge impact. And we still want that to happen, obviously, but it's quite the buffer, I guess you might say, to have such a proven guy like Kelly. I hope to take some of that pressure off maybe of Hudson's shoulders, still just as a true freshman, obviously.
I mean, back before the portal era, when you would have graduated your crew and really you'd have just been dependent on what is, the red shirts from last year, and then you're signing guys. There may have been an awkward amount of pressure on Micah to produce, not just this will be fun. I think he's in a situation right now to where there's a lot of help around him skill-wise, and that will only benefit him. One, because he can be brought along at a reasonable rate, and two, he doesn't have to carry any kind of load. And I think what he gives you, and he will feel differently. He will no, I'm here to help you win. But I think in previous situations, it may have been like, hey, man, we don't really have a choice. You're going to have to produce, and you're going to have to do it day one. We got to have it. We were, very pedestrian last year. You can fix a lot of this, so let's see it kind of stuff. Because I think what people will say is what Josh Kelly is ultimately, and this is a huge compliment to Josh Kelly and to Micah Hudson, is Josh Kelly is really just an older, more polished version of what Micah Hudson is. And that's why it's fun, I think, for somebody like Micah to learn from somebody like that has been around it, has done it, has great habits, runs great routes, and all that stuff. And so he can really see kind of what this looks like. Because I'll tell you this, Josh Kelly is the other player on offense that I think will be moved around quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Dre and Coy and Caleb would kind of settle in for the most part at where they are. But I think Josh and Micah are going to kind of play the same position from the standpoint of they're a wild card. And I think ultimately what you want is the defense to have to account for them, because then they have to adjust everything on their defense based on where those guys are lined up or where they motion to, and it screws them up, hopefully, and that's what opens things up for everybody else. That's the goal. Now, I don't know if we're there yet. We haven't seen any of it yet, but that's ultimately the goal.
Man, it's sure exciting to think about or dream about when we lay our little Red Raider heads down on our Red Raider pillows at night, and it's not too far away, just a few weeks away from getting our first glimpse. We'll stick with Texas Tech football, but flip to the other side of things, at least for the sound that we're about to hear. But this is something obviously that will impact the team in its entirety. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Never sweat buying tickets to your favorite event again with Gametime. It's always a breeze using the Gametime app, where you're going to find the best last-minute deals, and I love being able to scout out a view from any seat before pulling the trigger. And of course, you're always doing it at the lowest price guaranteed. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means you can finish off that final brat, that final beer at your own pace at the tailgate, because Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. Gametime gives you the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets, but not just fast, also secure and simple to use. So right now, download the Gametime app and create an account and use our promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. This is something obviously that will impact the team in its entirety. And we're talking about settling in, and this sounds like something that's not quite settled. You may remember going back to the bowl game against Cal, we were talking about a new wrinkle to college football, that being in-helmet communication. Now, some of you may be checking your calendar and saying, what year is this? College is just now talking about in-helmet communication. It's 2024, and this is a new innovation, at least on this level. And I was really intrigued to hear earlier in the week from a couple of guys we've already taken a listen to and discussed, a pair of linebackers, and Ben Roberts and Jacob Rodriguez, their thoughts on maybe how this is going to be disseminated whose helmet is going to be carrying this kind of weight or this kind of responsibility to jog our memories. Let's go back and take a listen first to Jacob Rodriguez, and then you will hear Ben Roberts talking about the future, at least defensively speaking, of this in-helmet communication.
We haven't really decided yet. We have a few of us working through it, but there's, highs and lows every single day we have, but that hasn't been decided yet. I think we can go a little bit faster, and instead of have to look to the sideline every single play, we kind of just always look at what the offense is doing, and then hear it through the earpiece, and then translate it to the rest of the defense.
I still think that there's some debate on who's going to wear it, just because they were like, oh, we're going to give it to all the Wills, so that would be Jake and Bryce. But I'm like, man, I really would like that in my headset because I hate looking around or other people telling me things. Okay. But when we played with it in the bowl game, it was pretty cool. I was running down the field, man covering somebody, and then I hear the rooter going, hey, quarterback's running. So I just peeled off and then made a play. But I think they're going to, get rid of that part of the headset.
I gotta be honest, I didn't know it was working exactly like that, where you're in game action and your coach can give you a heads up. And as he said, maybe they're going to get rid of that part. But what do you think, Chris, about maybe where this should settle and the kind of change this is going to be as we get into 2024?
Yeah, so back to the bowl game, it was trial, and it was let's just give this a shot. And so they allowed multiple guys on offense, multiple guys on defense to wear them, and then there was really no cutoff. Like I can talk to you here. I'm making the walkie-talkie symbol. I can talk to you through the play. Whereas the NFL, I think there's you can roll up until I think 15 seconds left on the play clock. I think is right, or maybe it's 30 or 15, whatever, and then it stops, and then the play, and so that allows the defense to. Okay, we showed him something. Now we're going to, switch our coverage or whatever. And so you have to be prepared for all those things. But there were multiple guys on both sides of the ball that had the green dot and had the headset and could listen to either Coach Kitley or Coach DeRuiter. What we have landed on here is that you will have one on each side of the ball. Barron obviously is going to be that guy on offense or whoever the QB is. And I'm also fascinated too. Like if you ever put Barron and Cam Brown on the field at the same time, does Cam Brown have to have two helmets? Because he would have to have like a separate helmet without the headset in, just food for thought. But defensively, it's pretty clear that Ben and Jacob probably would both love to wear this, right. And I could make an argument for either one to wear it. That's just up to Coach DeRuiter to have to kind of sell it, and this is why, this is what we prefer. Before you get into a rhythm and all those things. But those are your two candidates, without a doubt. And you hear, Ben say, well, maybe all the Wills. And so maybe that is Jacob and Bryce. But there's going to be times where those guys are on the field at the same time. And again, like Cam Brown, does Bryce have to have a separate helmet, with one without the headset if Jacob is on there? And that's what they decide to go with. But I'll be real curious to see kind of what Tim ultimately opts to go with. But they will have a cutoff. There will be a period of time to where, okay, we can talk to you up until this many seconds left on the play clock, and then communication stops. So there's still be some cat and mouse leading up to the snap of the ball. The one argument was, for offenses anyways, this is why we would want to go faster, because if we can talk up until whatever time is left on the play clock, let's just speed up and get the play snap before we get to that cutoff time. That way there is no other adjustment by the defense and showing you one thing, shifting to another after you've kind of gotten the play call and all that. So there'll be a lot of cat and mouse here. And you're still not done with, signs of a mermaid and a a dollar sign and a casino. I don't know. There's all kinds of shenanigans that are thrown up there. I'm always fascinated with that. Just kind of curious to see what people come up with, because a lot of times it's the letter that it starts with, and it's just telling you left or right or deep or shallow or who knows what. But you'll still get some of that, but largely you'll get a lot more communication. It should be smoother because they're just listening to the call on either side, and then they can kind of relay it. But you'll still get some stuff from the sideline signal then.
Well, it sounds like too, we're not quite to I don't know what it'd be called, but 4K sound. It's more like, oh, welcome to our defense.
That's what they
Am I
would all
describing
tell
that
you.
correctly?
Yeah, that's what they would tell you, is that the way it sounds, it's not super crystal clear. It sounds like you're in a drive-through.
Yeah.
And we've all been through one, and sometimes you can hear pretty good. Other times it's like,
Huh?
when they're repeating your order, you're like, can you say that again? Or no, I
Right.
want unsweet tea, not sweet
Yeah.
tea, or vice versa, whatever.
So we got to make sure to turn off all the diesel trucks in the parking lot before the game.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Which is why in the NFL, and you're going to see this happen too, quarterbacks on the road, or if you're at a home environment, it's really loud, you see them do this business.
Yeah.
Just to try to get as much of that sound in as they can to hear what's being called. But yeah,
I think whenever those guys are all on the field at the same time, like we're talking about with the linebackers, you don't need separate helmets. You just need an equipment man with really sticky fingers and just rip that green sucker right off. Now we're good. We're good. Get on in. We're good. And then slap another green sucker on there when he comes back out. I mean, the equipment staff challenge part of this is a whole new wrinkle for them as well. So let's keep the equipment guys on our minds as well as they deal with it, right?
Zane Perry and Cayman Ansel, man, not any better duo in the country than those guys. But it does give them a bit more, because I think it would be, if you have two green dots. This is what one of Joey's points too. He was trying to simplify and like, let's do this as close to the NFL as possible, because what his point was, we're now asking officials to police if there's two green dots on the field at the same time. They've got enough to worry about, so how many times will that happen? Does somebody try to get away with it and do it on purpose? I mean, I don't know. But you're right. It puts a lot of stress on those equipment guys for sure. But you're right. I'm telling you, somebody's going to try it. I mean, that's just what happens.
Nobody tries to get away with anything untoward in college football. Shout out to the reigning national champions. This should be.
I will attack today with the enthusiasm unknown to mankind. I did not cheat, and I'm not apologizing for nothing.
That's exactly right. Green dot or otherwise.
Yes.
Man, can't wait to find out who those guys are going to be and what type of advantage, or I guess for someone that may be a little unorganized, what type of disadvantage it might be for a team here or there if you get the clucking a little bit too frantically or frenetically leading up to the snap. May not help all that much. So will be a new challenge that could turn into an advantage for obviously everyone across the country. Chris, appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoyed it. Thank you for the insights. It's been a fun week all week long, and we'll do it again on the other side. So we'll see you then.
Yeah, enjoy your Friday, people. And there's just not too many more Saturdays that we will get without college football. We're creeping up close, man. Full weekend of NFL preseason football and all that stuff. So hope everybody enjoys the weekend. We will talk to you early next week.
Thank you so much for joining us. As always, get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. And one of the best ways to help us grow the show is to comment anything below. So go on and dive on into that YouTube comment section, dust up. It's a heck of a lot of fun, and you may learn a lesson or two. And thanks for making us your first listen all week long. For your second listen, check out Locked On Big 12, also on YouTube or anywhere you find podcasts. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for being out there. Have a great weekend, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.